We knew this was coming, didn't we? Didn't we know this was coming? Seriously. Michigan, what are you doing? What are you doing? Now, this team ought to get on the same plan, but they took this ass whooping this weekend. The game! Michigan versus Ohio State. Ohio State was a, 30-something point favorite. Michigan's just in the toilet in the trash can. There's been a lot of talk the last couple of weeks about, oh my God, can you imagine if Michigan cancels the Ohio State game to keep them from reaching the minimum number of games required to make the Big Ten title game, and then the playoff committee would keep Ohio State out because they wouldn't have played enough or very many games and they would have no Big Ten title and blah, blah, blah. And I will admit, I run a trash talking channel. That is a interesting, it's an interesting theory and an idea. But I don't for 1 second think that's why Michigan canceled this game, though. It sure would be fun to come on here and pretend that was why, though, wouldn't it? Yeah, it really would. Now, I do think this. If the roles were reversed, okay, if Michigan was 4-0, 5-0, whatever, ranked in the top 5, needed one more game, they would do everything in their power to play the game. Play with 60 players, play with 55 players, play with 50 players, whatever. They're not in that situation, obviously, so they're not going to play the game. I don't think this is made up. Clearly, we like to think sometimes that everything is a grand conspiracy. I do believe that Michigan is ate up with the coronavirus. However, we know for a fact Ohio State is ate up with the coronavirus too. They were ate up with it last week, right? And they still played the game. Why? Because they really, really needed to. Michigan does not need to play this game, and in fact, it's probably in their best interest not to. They would get absolutely obliterated. I mean, just destroyed. For a couple of reasons. One of them is obvious. Ohio State is just way better than Michigan this year. Even in years past, when Michigan was close to as good as Ohio State and had a pretty good team, they still couldn't get the job done against Ohio State. And number 3, Ohio State Ohio State needs to blow people out. They have to prove to the committee that even though they've only played 5, 6, 7, whatever the number of games ends up being, that they are clearly one of the top 4 teams. That's what they have to prove. Not that they might be one of the top 4, not that they're probably one of the top 4, but that they are there has to be no doubt. And the way you do that is you go out and you beat the absolute soul out of people, and that's what happened if this game was played. Ohio State would have beat Ohio State would have beat Michigan worse than Woody Hayes beat that player on the sideline all those years ago. That's how bad this game would have been. As a college football fan, I'm disappointed. Just like I'm disappointed in every game that gets canceled or postponed or rearranged or whatever. But at the same time, I'm still thankful we've at least had some college football. There was a lot of points over the summer where I wondered if we would see any college football at all this year. So, I don't want to sound greedy. I'm glad we got the college football that we did get this season, and we've got some more to come. But it does suck every time one of these games gets canceled. And as a college football fan, I'll admit, I love the Michigan-Ohio State game. Just like I love the Oklahoma-Texas game, the Ohio State-Penn State game, the Clemson, South Carolina, Auburn, Alabama. If you're a college football fan, one of the things to me that makes college football so great and separates it from some of the other sports in America is the intense rivalries. And this is one of the most intense, Ohio State and Michigan. Ohio State fans won't even say the word Michigan. When they type Michigan out, they won't type the M. They refer to them as the team up north. This is a bitter rivalry. And that's one of the reasons why you're going to hear a bunch of people saying today and over the next few days that Michigan is just purposely canceling this game to screw Ohio State. If Ohio State was playing Illinois, right? And Illinois canceled the game because of coronavirus. Ohio State fans will say, oh man, that sucks. We need to play this game. There would be nobody out there saying, Illinois is just trying to screw Ohio State, right? I mean, we're saying that because it's Ohio State, Michigan. And I've tried to make it clear how I feel about it. I don't think it's a total con job. I don't think Michigan is making all this stuff up so they don't have to play the game. I also believe that if Michigan was 5-0 or 6-0, whatever it was and needed to play this game, they would find a way to play it. I think both those things are true. And Michigan's not the only team that's done this. There's lots of teams that have canceled or postponed or delayed games that are bad teams that if they were a top 10, top 5 team, they would have found a way to play it. This has happened to lots of teams. Look at the Florida State-Clemson thing. Florida State canceled that game 3 hours before kickoff. I mean, Clemson had already flown down to Tallahassee, you know? And you've had lots of other teams cancel games because they're bad teams. And if they were 5-0 or 6-0, they'd have found a way to play them. But since they're not, you say, well, we're 8-0 with the Rona, we're not going to play. So it's not just an out-and-out excuse for Michigan. I do believe they're 8-0 with the Rona. So is Ohio State, though, like I said. So it's just a difference between a team that's looking for a reason to play versus a team that's maybe looking for a reason not to play. That's honestly how I feel about it. And we can debate how much of that is true or not. That's fine. What we can't debate, though, is that Ohio State would have beat the absolute soul out of them. They just would have. They would have curb stomped them, mollywopped them, whatever you want to say. Whatever you want to say. All right, so is Ohio State going to get in the playoffs now? Well, I think you have to look at this question in a couple of different ways. Number one, is Ohio State one of the best 4 teams? Let's just pretend that's the only qualification. Yes, I think they are. I do think they are. Does Ohio State deserve to get in? No, they don't. That doesn't mean they're not going to get in or that they shouldn't, though. I think every poll, regardless of what they tell you, everybody that does a poll makes it based off of a combination of how good they think a team is or where they think a team should be ranked versus where they think a team deserves to be ranked. And I'll give you a great example. It's Texas A&M and Florida. Everybody alive thinks Florida is better than Texas A&M, myself included. Every person in every poll thinks Florida is better than Texas A&M. If they played tomorrow, Florida would be a significant favorite. Literally everybody thinks Florida is better than Texas A&M. But they're in the same conference. They have the same record, and Texas A&M beat Florida. Therefore, Florida does not deserve to be ahead of Texas A&M, at least right now. If Florida beats Alabama, they will, clearly. So that's an example of ranking or classifying a team using both of those things. Where how high should they be versus where do they deserve to be? Cincinnati at 10-0 or 11-0. Do I think they're better than Ohio State? No. Do I think they deserve to finish ranked higher than Ohio State if Ohio State finishes 6-0 with no division title or no conference title? Yes. Do I think Florida is better than Ohio State? That's probably a close one. But if Ohio State finishes the season 6-0 and doesn't play in the Big Ten title game, I would not rank them ahead of Florida. I wouldn't rank them ahead of Texas A&M. I definitely wouldn't rank them ahead of any of the other top teams, Alabama, Clemson, or Notre Dame. So this is what I'm saying. I do think Ohio State is one of the best 4 teams. I do not think a 6-0 Ohio State who doesn't win the conference deserves to get in. Will they? I don't know. The Big Ten is going to change the rules. It'll be a big shock here. The Big Ten, man, look, the Big 12 for years has had the worst run conference in all of college football, period. It's not close. Some of the boneheaded decisions that the Big 12 have made leaves you scratching your head 4, 5, 6 years down the road. It just will never be figured out. The ACC pulls the hold my beer move, lets Notre Dame into the conference for 1 year and gets nothing in return for Notre Dame. Dumb. That might be the single dumbest move a conference commissioner has ever made. Now, the Big 12 has made a whole series of dumb moves, so the totality of which makes it dumber than the ACC. But what the ACC did, allowing Notre Dame to come in for 1 year and not getting anything in return. And when I say anything in return, what should have happened, obviously, we talked about this in the summer, the ACC should have said, yeah, you want to be in the ACC this year so you can play Power 5 games? Fine. You can be in the ACC this year and next year and the year after and the year after and the year after. That's what should happen. They didn't do that. That was stupid. But the Big Ten, the way they handled this whole coronavirus thing in the beginning was a giant fail, an epic L, a disaster of biblical proportions, canceling the season way early for not much reason. They never even delayed the season. They just went straight from having the season like normal to, nope, we're just going to cancel it altogether. Reneged on that. They come up with a 6-game schedule, which was dumb from the word go. No bye weeks built in. Everybody and their brother knew nobody was going to play an entire schedule, and guess what? Nobody's played an entire schedule. Then they said, well, if you want to qualify for the Big Ten title game, because we don't want a team that's 1-0 to get in, and prevent a better team from making it, we're going to make a rule that says you have to play this number of games to qualify for the Big Ten title game. Well, Ohio State's not going to qualify for that. And they're clearly the best team in the Big Ten. So what's the Big Ten going to do? They're now going to go back and change the rule again. So you cancel the season early for no reason. Everybody realizes how dumb you are. You come out and say, oh, no, never mind. We are going to play 6 games. Terrible idea. It didn't work. You make a rule. Oh, stupid, terrible idea. Now Ohio State's going to get left out. Let's go back and change it. The Big Ten is a dumpster fire. This Kevin Warren should be out of a job yesterday as commissioner of the Big Ten. Anyway, Ohio State and Michigan not playing this year. The game not being held this year. What a shame. Ohio State needed this game, no doubt about it. Michigan avoids a giant L, and we get to watch the Big Ten dance circles around itself to try to figure out a way to justify putting Ohio State in the Big Ten title game against its own rules that it literally just made 2 months ago. Have a good morning.